Hey, this is Fred Jackson of the Seattle Seahawks, and you're listening to the Fantasy Footballers.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome back. Welcome back, Mike.
I felt like that was just personally for me.
It was a little bit. It was welcome back to the listeners on this fine Monday morning, November 23rd.
Crisp.
It was a welcome back to the Beard, who has returned.
Yes, I'm back. Thank you so much for the support on the tweeters.
Yes, that's what it's called. So we had a crazy week, and we still got the Monday night game, but just a lot of wild games.
Nuts.
Another home run on the almost upset. Thank you very much. Go Colts. I didn't even actually want the Colts to win, mostly because I want to see the Jaguars somehow win the division. But, they got it done. And the Falcons have lost 4 consecutive games.
Including back-to-back weeks against the deadly
illustrious
duo of Blaine Gabbert and Matt Hasselbeck. That's a good defense.
And the offense, now you got
Devonta
Freeman concussion. So we'll talk about everything. We will. We'll talk about everything. We'll be here for 8 straight hours. Again. Oh, wait.
We can cover everything in 8 hours. That's really impressive.
We're going to talk through every offensive player on every roster. Okay? So, no, a lot of crazy games. If my voice isn't the same, it's because I was screaming at the top of my lungs all last night at the Cardinal-Bengal Sunday Night Football game.
Ooh.
Which was just a delight. Just a delight. I was telling the guys before the show, where we were sitting, there was a little too much orange for my taste. It was where all the people apparently purchased tickets together in big batches as they came in from Ohio, and so it was nice when it got quiet.
And they can go back.
They can go back to that cold, dreary wasteland. All righty. Well, let's see. We got our fantasy rewind today. We got our StudMuffins, our pooped in their big boy pants. We got our Monday night preview. Got some mailbag going on. And if you want to get a hold of the show, you can do so on Twitter at the FF Ballers. Check out the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. And you can join our fantasy football community of listeners at jointhefoot.com. And there's always good stuff there, exclusive content. We're on there talking with everybody. And there's a exclusive show every week. So, all right, guys, before I get into the quick question, do you have anything you want to share? It's Monday morning. Mike, you've been gone for 6 weeks in Disneyland, so
feels like I was gone forever. It was and it's just feeling very disconnected. And like I said, it was great getting the messages on Twitter. Come back. The best part though was like, I know you're at Disneyland, but who would you play?
Yeah.
So I apologize to anyone who sent me those because they did not get answered this week.
That's just fine. You were with your kids.
That's probably for the best, too.
Yeah. You don't want to set a precedent of Disneyland fantasy answers. That just doesn't go anywhere good. So, all right. Hey, quick question for the day. Rank these guys in terms of how comfortable you are with them as your RB1 moving forward. Or let's just say starting, okay? Rank these guys. How comfortable are you starting them moving forward? The 5 names that I have, Jeremy Hill, who had kind of a bounce back, but 2 goal line carries, that's when he does it. Jeremy Hill, Chris Ivory, Jonathan Stewart, Shady McCoy, Darren McFadden.
I would go Shady McCoy, number 1. I know.
I didn't know if you'd go Shady or Stewart.
I'm going with Shady McCoy as my number 1. He looked last week was
last 2 weeks.
But just like great. Last week was the kind of the first time in a while where you've watched LaShawn McCoy and thought, hey, he actually looks healthy. And can he stay healthy? I don't know. But he is healthy right now. And a healthy LaShawn McCoy is an elite running back. So I'm going to go Shady. And then the next one is tougher. I would probably go – I'm going to go with Darren McFadden. As crazy as that sounds.
Sounds pretty crazy.
His volume is so insane. And then the team.
How is it? Is it more? He's not getting more carries than Stewart. It's just the dump offs you're saying?
Yeah. Just being completely involved. That offense is only going to get better as Romo gets more acclimated and gets the rust off. Then I would go Jonathan Stewart 3. And I guess Ivory.
Yeah.
4. Ivory and Hill. Ivory's ahead of Hill for sure. I'll say that.
For me, it's funny because you're saying that's crazy, and I get that, but I would actually have Darren McFadden as my first of this group because that offensive line and Tony Romo back, his production, his baseline is going to be very high, and his ceiling is very high. So I'm very comfortable with Darren McFadden other than injuries, but you got quite a few injury risks on this list. In fact, every single one of them other than Jeremy Hill has had a label of, an injury guy. So I would go Darren McFadden.
29 carries is pretty good.
Pretty good.
Off of all week was the groin.
Yeah.
Then I would go probably Jay Stu, then McCoy, then Ivory, then Hill.
The one thing that's really attractive to me about Jonathan Stewart is he's got 6 straight games of 20 or more carries, and his schedule to end the year is as good as it gets in fantasy football. But he's not as involved in the passing game. I probably have to side with you after seeing that 29 carry number with McFadden. I probably go McFadden. McCoy and Stewart are basically tied to me, and then it's the
question.
The guys that I'm not excited about starting right now.
And the 29 carries, so maybe it's not a legitimate question, but it's been a while since watching a Cowboy game where any other running back actually touched the ball, and I felt like Turbin actually got some carries and some red zone carries. Clearly Robert Turbin is
the backup,
but he was actually getting snaps where when Michael was the backup, who is he is long gone.
Yes, practice squad.
And I was trying to figure out how I could whip up like a red practice squad jersey to wear in today.
That would have been great.
But it didn't happen.
I'm sure he'll be cut in the Hobson extras they can send you.
So, but Turbin's actually getting carries. So that was an interesting.
So McFadden owners handcuff with Turbin.
Yes, yeah,
because that should happen. McFadden. I mean, you're at this point you're leaning on McFadden,
right?
Which you can do and should do for your fantasy team going into the playoffs. But you better handcuff him.
You're dancing with the dragon.
Yeah, and last week we said we didn't really know if you handcuff because Turbin hadn't been on the roster, and we're like, is it going to be Rod Smith? Is it going to be Turbin? Some mixture. It probably would be a mixture, but it seems like Turbin's the guy.
Yeah. And this is a good week to get him, even though you didn't get him last week, because there's so many huge pickups this week. People aren't rushing out to get Turbin unless you're the DMC owner.
Weekly Rewind.
All right, let's get you caught up in all the injury news, the madness.
It was It was a mini bloody Sunday. It was
I was out. I was out, and Mike was sending messages into Slack, and I believe it ended with "It's happening again. It's happening again," because we saw a lot of injuries. We saw a lot of guys go down, and we saw the kind of injuries in this week in fantasy that really hurt people. I mean, it hurt the players too, right? Because they got the injury. But it hurt the fantasy player because it happened early in a lot of these. And so you had several injuries. We'll go through them. The first one I'm going to mention, though, this one did not happen early. This happened late. Joe Flacco has torn his ACL. The Ravens are out of players, and they have resigned the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Because Justin Forsett also broke both bones in his forearm, and he will miss the rest of the season. And so you take Steve Smith, 2 weeks ago going out, and then Flacco, and then Perryman was ruled out completely, and Forsett and Taliaferro, and I mean,
wow.
And the season started with T. Sizzle,
Dennis Pitta.
Oh my goodness! Crockett Gilmore's now playing quarterback. Did you know that?
For 1 week until he gets injured.
So this should let's spin it the right way. Unfortunately,
let's be positive.
Well, no, we're not gonna be positive for the Ravens. We're gonna be negative for the Ravens, and we're gonna say start a defense against the Ravens.
Yeah,
backup quarterback, backup running back.
Matt Schaub is now famous for those pick sixes. So those defenses, you want them to score.
Well, and honestly, we were debating this before the game, and this is in the Flacco, Justin Forsett news context. Javorius Allen, Buck Allen. Is he going to be the Darren McFadden of a really bad offense? Probably.
Yes, and I'm of the position that I think that it doesn't necessarily kill him that Joe Flacco is out, kill Buck Allen.
Not at all.
Because I think that while the end zone opportunities will likely be limited, I mean, Justin Forsett wasn't scoring touchdowns anyways. They were letting Joe Flacco sneak them in. They were doing bootlegs to fullbacks and to tight ends. But Buck Allen, with Matt Schaub as the quarterback, he was probably looking at a healthy dose of dump-offs.
So here's the beauty of it. We get to debut this brand new, fresh Ravens team on Monday Night Football against the Browns.
Ooh. So do you pick up the Browns defense?
No, you don't pick up the Browns defense. That would be I wouldn't. I certainly wouldn't. But yeah, that's compared to like the two flexes, the Cardinal games, the last 2 weeks were incredible on Sunday Night Football, where it was close games, the Seahawks and the Bengals.
And tonight should be good with the with the Pats.
Yeah,
Bills.
Rex Ryan on primetime. I'll take it.
And then you get Matt Schaub versus Johnny Football.
Yeah.
Monday night primetime.
Well, it's always great too because when you have a matchup like that, it's fun to listen to Gruden and Tirico just kind of like because they actually come out and say those things now. They're like, yeah, this is a game everyone's been waiting for. Not. All right.
Let me tell you, man.
Back to the news. Devontae Freeman, concussion. This killed Freeman owners. People relying on him for must-win games. There's nothing you can do about this. It just happened. Hopefully you were rostering Tevin Coleman, so if Freeman misses a week, you've got Coleman. I don't know if he'll be back or not. You had Tammy had a concussion earlier. He missed a week for Atlanta. It's just going to depend on that concussion protocol.
Yep. And the unfortunate side was Coleman was not he didn't debut that well in the getting the 2 downs, and he's not getting the passing down work. He's still a bit of a fumbler, so he's a decent option if you're the Freeman owner and you can't get anybody else. But like Andy said, hopefully we've been talking about Coleman that you need to have him if you're a Freeman owner.
Yeah, they play the Vikings this week, so it's not the best matchup if Tevin Coleman does get that start, but you should always have him.
Yep.
Breaking news.
Well, this is just I'm sharing the Marshawn Lynch news in the context of breaking news because it came out this morning that he is going to see the same doctor Alan Hearns saw last week, and the team believes he has a sports hernia and may need surgery, and so that he's going to be seen by I forget the doctor's name in Maine or whatever that Hearns went to, but if he's out. If he needs to go under the knife, this is going to be the Thomas Rawls show for the rest of the season.
And
Thomas Rawls had kind of a good week.
Yeah. I believe Sean Alexander was the last Seahawk to put up that kind of yardage.
200 plus. Yeah.
And in between Sean Alexander and Thomas Rawls was a pretty good running back there in Marshawn Lynch. So Rawls is the reason that Robert Turbin and Kristen Michael were just dispensed with.
Now we know.
Yeah. He's really good, and Andy's smile from ear to ear as he picked.
I've got him in 2 of my 3 leagues already. I picked him up a couple weeks ago and profusely mocked the Marshawn Lynch owner for the past 2 weeks, who may or may not be my brother-in-law, who insisted he would rather keep Tevin Coleman on his bench than Thomas Rawls to handcuff Lynch. And now he's getting his comeuppance, and I like it.
Oh, man.
No, but he's going to get to play Coleman for 1 week.
Maybe.
And guess who he plays against? He plays against
the Vikings.
No. He plays against.
Oh, he plays me next week head to head, and I'm going to play that Rawls fella.
Yeah, I hope for the sake of this little microorganism here that I hope that Tevin Coleman is the starter. So that you can have Tevin Coleman against Rawls, and see who
this
really
is what
wins.
makes fantasy football great, and hopefully you don't mind getting an insight into our league of record and our world here, because these are the things where the first thing I did when I woke up this morning was post picture and meme after meme on our fantasy wall, our like league Facebook page, just to mock him because it felt so good. All right, ESPN Bears reporter Jeff Dickerson said Matt Forte appears to be on track to play Thanksgiving Day against the Packers. This is interesting. We talked last week, Jason and I did, about the fact that Forte is very open to sharing carries, and they may very well. There's no real reason not to share them at this point with Forte coming off an injury and Langford playing so well. What do you do if you're an owner of these two guys?
If you have both of them, or if you just have one?
Well, if you have both of them.
If you have both of them, you still play Forte, to me. And if Forte is ready to go, then I think he'll still get the majority of the timeshare. And there's still the possibility with John Fox that he goes old grumpy man and Forte gets all the carries again.
So let's say you're the Langford owner and you don't have the best of options. Do you start Langford next week if Forte is starting? Are you willing to put him in your flex?
If your options are very limited, and what's interesting in my other big league, I have this situation where I've just been depleted by all kinds of injuries. I managed to grab Langford, who's been a nice Band-Aid for the last couple weeks, and I've been trying to negotiate with the Matt Forte owner of just offering and he's out. He's basically out of the running for the playoffs, and it's a keeper league. And so I'm trying to dangle. I'm like, I'll give you Allen Robinson, who you can keep, because he cannot keep Matt Forte. I'll give you him for Matt Forte, and it's not getting done. And I'm trying to get all these offers together.
So when is your deadline in that league?
This week.
Yeah. A lot of deadlines hitting this week, so or have already hit. So if you have questions, trade questions, you can go to the website, click the submit a question button. Real easy. We'll answer some trade questions later in the week.
Answer my trade question. I need to get Matt Forte.
Yeah, answer it with a yes is what you're saying. Frank Gore told reporters following the game that he'll be fine. Now, he went out with a knee and quad injury, went back into the game, but looked like he was hobbling around. Bradshaw had some production. Jason, as a Gore owner, as a Bradshaw owner, how you feeling?
If you're a Gore owner and a Bradshaw owner, I think you're feeling fine. If you are a Gore owner that does not have Bradshaw,
is that you now?
Which is now my position. You need to go out and sign Ahmad Bradshaw. We were saying when the Colts signed him, he is a great backup because last year
he knows the system.
When he was in there, he was a top 5 fantasy back. So yeah, I mean, right now you just need to watch practice reports. I expect Gore to play to get the bulk of the carries, but whenever you've got an older fellow who is struggling with injuries as the season continues on and is getting a good workload, there's always a chance for it to become, something that takes him out of the game or out of the season. So you definitely need to have Ahmad Bradshaw, who I believe scored 2 touchdowns this week. You got to have him on your roster. A lot of handcuffs this week that we're going to be talking about on our waiver wire show and ordering them as far as, let's say you're not the owners of these guys. Who do you go out and grab? Because those are important questions. So answers.
It was the week of the backup.
It was.
I believe if you look through the top 10, it is just a ridiculous finish.
And we're going to see here, the last bit of news I want to share is the Char West injury. He went down with a hamstring injury. They said he's day-to-day, but the word strain was used, and that could be a multi-week injury. We saw Spencer Ware come in and prove that the Chargers cannot defend a running back. I mean, that's all it told me. Anybody who says it's, as Jason would say, a coming-on party for Spencer Ware. Spencer Ware, yeah, you got to come on to the Chargers, okay? I could run for 75 and a touchdown.
What is happening?
Did you not? How many of the shows did you listen to last week?
I listened to a couple. I saw on.
Did you hear Jason?
Yeah, I heard. I heard some commentary from the Foot Clan on Twitter.
Well, yeah,
about
things got out of hand. Jason. It happens sometimes. Yeah. We all do it.
It happens to Jason,
but only
all
to
the
Jason.
Time.
You're welcome, Foot Clan.
All right, before we get into our stud muffins and our pooped in our big boy pants, I want to thank our sponsor today, the sponsor of the show, SeatGeek, the SeatGeek app. Listen, I can testify to the greatness of this app. I used SeatGeek to go to the Cardinal-Bengal game last night, and honestly, the routine for me in going to games, it's not going to change. It's going to be SeatGeek because it's too darn easy. You pull open the app, you choose the game, you see the stadium, and they have these little green different colored dots that show you which deal's the best. I just clicked on the one that had the best deal, grabbed myself some tickets. They arrived in my inbox in like 5 minutes. I was done. It was done. And that was a birthday present for my dad. Took him to the game. Easy as that. SeatGeek is great. They pull in ticket options from hundreds of online ticket sellers to create a one-stop shop for tickets. When you shop on SeatGeek, you see virtually every ticket option available for that game all on one page. It's easy. You don't have to go anywhere else. It's not like you're missing out on other deals. And like I said, they have the deal score feature, which makes it super easy. So to redeem the promo code right now, because our listeners get $20. You get $20 back using the promo code FOOTBALLERS in the SeatGeek app. It takes less than a minute to download the app. Super easy. So download the free SeatGeek app today. Enter the promo code FOOTBALLERS in the app. SeatGeek will then send you $20 once you've made your first SeatGeek purchase. Every ticket purchased on SeatGeek is backed by a 100% guarantee. Download the free SeatGeek app and enter promo code FOOTBALLERS today.
We'd also like to thank our other sponsor, FanDuel. Listen, Foot Clan, turn that holiday spirit into a winning spirit.
Oh, yeah.
With FanDuel. And FanDuel's new friend selector makes it easier than ever to play against your friends and your family.
Nice.
Look, here's another way to play.
And your
at
enemies.
FanDuel.
And
of course, and your enemies and people you want to disparage.
Yeah.
You can make a private league. Try it today. Look, FanDuel is the best place to play 1 week fantasy football. You play for real money. Building a team is easy. Just pick your players and stay under the salary cap. Entry fees start at just $1. Anyone can play. And basketball is here. We like multi-sports here at the Fantasy Footballers. Basketball is fantastic. Go play some basketball at FanDuel.com. This is what we need the Foot Clan to do. Go to Foot Clan. You go to FanDuel.com right now. You click on the microphone in the upper right-hand corner, and you use our promo code BALLERS.
Ballers.
I've been gone for a week, and this is what happens?
Ballers.
Oh, my goodness. Promo code BALLERS. And you're going to get a sweet promo or a sweet promotion from FanDuel for all new users. So FanDuel.com. And with our promo code, you get free entry into a 50-50 money league on FanDuel. Just finish in the top half, and you win some cash for the next day. So FanDuel.com.
All right, nice. Let's go ahead and get into the guys that stood out this week.
This week's Fantasy Stud Muffins.
Bouncing around in our doc here, Jay.
Yeah, I know.
In our show doc, you're clicking around. There's words changing.
Doing work.
All right. So, if anybody had any doubt that Cam Newton was an MVP candidate, he's an MVP candidate.
Yeah, he's very good this year. And
right now, it's Cam Newton and it's Carson Palmer in the NFC.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. So, Cam Newton, 21 for 246, a 5-burger in terms of touchdowns, and just massacred Washington.
Yeah, that was delightful for me, as I have had pretty much a 50-point scoring quarterback the last 4 weeks, and I have not yet started them. They have been the wrong choice every week on my bench.
That's always fun.
So I got to start Cam this week. That was fun.
All right, so Jameis Winston also had a huge week, 19 for 246 and 5 touchdowns.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. Well, hey, I did say I thought
this was your almost
my almost
upset.
I had to choose between the Colts and the Falcons, or the Tampa Bay Bucks against Philly, and now Tampa Bay is a game out of the wild card.
Yes,
and they have a matchup with the Colts this week.
500.
So really impressive game from Winston. Really, really made a difference to have Vincent Jackson back in the lineup. And 2 touchdowns for Jackson, and Doug Martin ran wild.
And I will say this because I was very involved in this game. I had an Eagles defense going against him. The Eagles dropped about 6 interceptions and just missing a play by a hair. Now that doesn't matter. When it comes to the stat sheet, but I'm just pointing out for the people who are, Winston, 5 touchdowns.
He's the greatest.
He was just on the right side of what could have been a horrific week for him.
But Mike, he was the #1 drafted quarterback in the NFL. I'm pretty sure he's gonna be the best.
Mickey Mouse followed me home.
No, the voice of public opinion was very popular last week.
But Mike, I think he should be the #1 pick this week.
The #1 pickup in
waivers.
Yeah, well,
he had 5 touchdowns. What are you stupid?
What is?
Sorry, Mike. Things have really changed.
I'm gone for a week.
The show's changed a lot. Mostly we have coming on parties and Mickey Mouse shows up. That's really all that's going on here.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse seems really rude.
He's a son of a gun. Yeah. All right. Well, I will say this. Winston plays the Colts this week. Would you stream him?
No.
The answer is yes for me.
Yeah?
Well, you want to know why? Here's why you stream him this week, Jason Moore.
Okay.
Matt Stafford was the 6th-ranked quarterback this week. He was 22 for 282, no passing touchdowns, 1 running touchdown. He was the 6th best quarterback. That's why.
That's pretty crazy because, he was 2 of your start of the weeks, and
I feel terrible about that start of the week, and he was 6th.
Watching the game, it was like, he's having a bad game, but there were a lot of bad games in fantasy football this week.
This week spun me around.
But
it was crazy.
We're in the fantasy stud muffins
like
section.
a record, baby.
Those people who were fantastic, and I'll go with my start of the week, Russell Wilson. You saw
Russell Wilson.
Had
24, 260, 3 touchdowns, 9 for 30 on the ground, and got it done. And
Yeah.
Tyler Lockett was the beneficiary there. Carson Palmer last night, 20 for 317, 4 touchdowns, and Andy Dalton had an okay fantasy day, 22 for 315 and 2 touchdowns.
Which was good to see in a primetime game, to see that you can trust it. He was on the road against a good defense in primetime, and he showed up for fantasy. So it's not, if he had a bad game,
He was, NFL-wise, he was back and forth. Fantasy-wise, he was good, but he missed some throws. He checked down a lot. The Cardinals, obviously, Mike had Gio as his start of the week simply because the Cardinals can't play defense against running backs out of the backfield. I kept saying that at the game. I was like, if they just ran Gio out of the backfield and threw it to him every play, I don't know if the Cardinals could cover that. But he missed Marvin Jones on a touchdown pass. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Really easy touchdown pass. The guy was wide open. But a good game, like you said, Jay. He bounced back on the road. Decent fantasy day. I don't love him going forward. He's going to be a matchup play to me. I'm not just going to, it's 2 straight losses. That team, I'm not trusting him to have bounce-back games every week. It's going to be matchup dependent, and I don't like him against the Rams this week.
Yep.
So, all right, let's get into the wide receivers. Who stood out to you guys? Who were the stud muffins at the wide receiver position?
Well, let me I'll start this off.
Hold on.
DeAndre Hopkins, sir, I apologize. I know that I only had you 14 spots away from being perfectly dead on accurate at the 15. I had you as the 15th wide receiver this week.
Shame on you.
But you were the best. You're the best wide receiver that's ever played the game, and Jerry Rice has nothing on you. Yeah, he looked pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good.
You knucklehead. I had to call him out. Mike, you heard this. I had to call him out on the air because I didn't want the fantasy footballer's name to be dragged through the mud with your ranking of DeAndre Hopkins.
I had to message.
Well, he's got a bad matchup.
I had to message on Slack immediately after hearing it of saying, what is going on? It's done. It's Hopkins.
I believe he said Jason's Hopkins hate is insanity or something like that.
I'm still standing by the fact I was only 14 spots wrong. That's what I will
That
roll with.
is correct. All right. So Hopkins, yeah, pretty good. 5 for 118, 2 touchdowns. James Jones resurfaced from the mire, from the bog. He came and rose and made it, honestly, a really great touchdown catch. 6 for 109 and a touchdown, and probably single-handedly made a lot of people angry who were facing him and thought he'd do nothing. Tyler Lockett was 4 for 42 and 2 touchdowns. He has his games here and there. What do you think of Tyler Lockett going forward?
Great future or great dynasty type guy, but he not seen here in his stat line is I think he had 5 or 6 targets. So he's not getting high volume week to week. You never know who it's going to be for the Seahawks, if it's going to be Baldwin, Curse,
Jimmy Graham.
or Jimmy Graham. I mean, it's a roulette up there where you can't depend on a fantasy guy week to week.
Pop quiz. How many touchdowns has Julio Jones had in the last 7 weeks?
Last 7 weeks?
7 weeks.
I'm gonna go with 0.
2 touchdowns in 7 weeks for Julio Jones, and keeps getting it done. 9 for 160. Are you concerned about him at all, or do you just roll him out there and know that he's gonna be the best?
Yeah, you're not concerned at all.
His floor is ridiculous. I mean, if you're getting 16 points in a standard,
did you hear all the Vontae Davis one-on-one against Julio in this game? Dun dun dun. That's what they did. They said they're gonna roll Vontae out. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, that to me says he's not gonna get double coverage.
Yeah,
because you're gonna put Vontae on him, and then Vontae had to leave the game because he got hurt. And as soon as Vontae leaves the game, I understand that Julio got 15 targets. How did he not get 25 targets?
They might have won had they done that.
Just throw him the ball.
I mean, there were on that last drive to try to tie the game. You had a blatant, terrible drop by Leonard Hankerson in the middle of the field. So
he's been really good at that, though.
Hankerson,
yeah.
To his credit, that's one of his skills.
Very consistent with those drops.
As is always the case when my fantasy teams face him, Deshaun Jackson emerged from his doldrum of a season. 5 for 87 and a touchdown, a 56-yard bomb. He will do this, and it is hard to predict when. And when he does it, you're happy, and when he doesn't, you're not. However, I would start him. I'd flex him going forward.
Yes, yeah. He's a guy. If you you want a little boom in your lineup week to week.
Got to get a little boom in there.
Always got to have a little boom boom. but you don't want every single player in there to be a Deshaun Jackson type, but he's a perfect flex where if you feel steady about your points and then you just need a little adrenaline shot, and go with Deshaun Jackson.
Terrence Williams, 4 for 79 and a touchdown. In fact, Matt, I'll give him a shout out here. Matt, our intern, we have an intern from NYU that helps us out with some of the show, and he picked Terrence Williams to be one of the better guys for the rest of the season because of the return of Tony Romo. I don't know if I saw that happening when he said it, but definitely first game back, really good game for Terrence Williams. Primetime last night, J.J. Nelson, 4 for 142 and a touchdown. I think a lot of people were probably saying, who's J.J. Nelson? Those that weren't are probably saying, well, do I need to go sign this guy?
No.
Yeah, once the health of John Brown and Michael Floyd get back, you've got J.J. Nelson's, I think, maybe a dynasty type of player because he's in Bruce Arians' offense, but that's the best case scenario. You don't need to get him.
Yeah, and you saw last week it was Jerron Brown. This week it was J.J. Nelson.
Yep.
And it was also Daniel Fells a little bit. So.
Yeah.
All right, running backs. Needs very little introduction. Thomas Rawls, 30 for 209 and a touchdown, and just threw in 3 for 46 and a touchdown through the air. And ran like a maniac. I mean,
yes.
I don't know if I was happy or sad to see him colliding with people the way he was, but every time it looked like he was going to go out of bounds on the edge, he would just put his foot in the ground and then knock a person over and then keep running.
And through the holes when he was running through the middle of the line, he did what really good backs do, which he made it look a little bit easier. He made the offensive line look like they were opening up bigger holes than they were, and that's what you want to see. So he really impressed me a lot.
He looks like Marshawn Lynch with more explosiveness.
Youth.
Yeah, well, he's fast. He's faster than
He's
Lynch.
much faster.
And he has a more burst, and he doesn't have Marshawn Lynch's insane balance yet. But man, if Lynch is out, Rawls is a delightful running back right now.
And you have to wonder from the Seahawks perspective, like you want Lynch back. Lynch is Lynch, right? Like he's been the basic, but you don't want Lynch back hurt. Right. So like Lynch half playing versus Rawls doing what he did yesterday. Yes, it was the 49ers defense, but he ran like a man possessed. So Doug Martin, 27 for 235.
He pretty much almost didn't play in the second half of the fourth quarter. They didn't even play him. He could have broken
the Eagles' defense didn't play in the first three, so that was the irony of the situation.
Yeah, Doug Martin looked very, very good. You want to talk about great schedules the rest of the way. You know, some of the best ones. You got Frank Gore. You got Jonathan Stewart. You talked about
Lamar Miller,
T.J. Yeldon,
Ingram,
Doug Martin.
Ingram, yeah, for sure, and Doug Martin. He's another guy that comes to mind as a great rest of season guy to have.
This was a very nice confidence boost for those that had Martin. The last couple of weeks, he struggled.
One of the things you don't realize is I think he's top 5 in the league in carries on the year. He is actually getting. You see him as like if he only got more work, but he's getting a ton of work. I'm gonna effort the exact number there.
And then Spencer Ware was 11 for 96, 2 touchdowns in place of Charkandrick West, who went out with the hammy injury
in about 22 snaps or so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not sustainable.
Well, that game was over. They just gave up.
And so moving forward, I guess this is a little spoiler for the waiver show.
That's fine.
But people are, Spencer Ware, do I need to pick him up? Yes. However, Nile Davis was inactive, and I expect
he won't be inactive.
And he will not be inactive,
and
and Davis will get some snaps too. So it's not just going to be Ware takes over the way that Charizard has.
Very, very good point. Jonathan Stewart was 21 for 102. And he had 1 for 12 and a touchdown through the air, which means he scored, I believe, 5 or 6 times in the last 7 games.
That's fantastic.
So very good for Stewart owners. And he just has that. I don't know. I don't want to go out on a limb too far here. I don't think I am. I think Carolina might go undefeated. I mean, they're 10-0, and their schedule is just
the worst.
No,
the best.
Not the worst.
No, I'm saying the worst opponents.
Okay.
Like just bad matchups.
Mark these. You're once again. Thank you with the language.
You're welcome.
They played Dallas. Okay. Dallas on Thanksgiving.
That's a tough matchup.
Okay, it is a tough matchup. In fact, I saw a lineup ridiculous. The Dallas is 3-7. They're 10-0, and I saw a line where they were
the Cowboys are favored
by 1.5.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not saying that the Cowboys are going to
ridiculous,
win, but it's a tougher matchup.
At New Orleans,
division game.
Atlanta,
yeah.
Giants,
yeah.
Atlanta. Again. and then Tampa.
I like that for New Orleans, you've got a division game. Like, that's a tough.
But for Atlanta,
who's also in the division, and I think you just needed to flip those around.
So maybe they don't go undefeated, but I think that they are in the driver's seat for home field, certainly at 10-0. And just playing the recipe of this game for all their games seems to be just get on top
and stay there
and just keep running the ball.
Jonathan Stewart is second in the league, including this week, with attempts behind Adrian Peterson. Third in the league is Doug Martin. Yeah. So Doug Martin is getting the ball and running well with it.
All right, Bradshaw had a good game. When Gore went out, he was 9 for 36 and 4 for 20 and 2 touchdowns through the air. Darren McFadden, like we said, 29 for 129.
And the next one.
And, of course, I threw that in there. I put the of course. Eddie Lacy.
Fat Eddie. Hey, I've got a story about Fat Eddie here. I was watching football with a friend of mine who does not watch football. Doesn't really know football that much at all. He was very happy that on a commercial he knew who Peyton Manning was. So that's his level of football.
Sure.
We're watching the Green Bay game, and Eddie Lacy gets a pass and rumbles a little bit, and he goes, "That guy's really big." And I was like, that shows it. That shows it. You don't know football. You don't know an offensive lineman from a running back, but you see Fat Eddie, and you have no frame of reference, and you go, "Oh, that guy's like really big." And he meant that as in like overweight, because we were talking, and he's like, he just looks really unhealthy. It's like,
man,
yep, that's Eddie.
I hope
that being
back.
said, 22 for 100.
He looks
This is
great.
what Starks owners were afraid of. This is what we warned about a little bit in the week. Still said start Starks because he's the starter.
Not anymore.
But now, who knows? And how can you feel confident about
it's Eddie Lacy
rolling Eddie Lacy out, though? Are you kidding me? I mean, the fact you said it that way, I don't even buy that.
What?
It's Eddie Lacy.
It is. Oh, it's Eddie Lacy.
It's been Eddie Lacy for like.
But I'm saying that Eddie Lacy is the starter again. He will be the starter next week.
I wouldn't start him.
I'm not saying whether or not to start him. I'm saying Green Bay will start Eddie Lacy. Eddie Lacy will be the majority carry.
Yeah,
he's got a Thanksgiving game against the Bears, and I think Eddie Lacy's gonna eat.
Oh my goodness, he eats on Thanksgiving. Not to over disparage the man for being larger. There have been great running backs. Jerome Bettis was a Hall of Fame, franchise running back at that size, and Lacy has been that for years. I mean, he just maybe it got a little too carried away this year. It seemed like he's a little more
just the level of cardiovascular health combined with his ankle was a bad recipe.
Exactly. Yeah, you got a lot of weight on that ankle.
Yeah, is
what you're saying. All right, Ronnie Hillman, 21 for 102. He was the guy.
And what's interesting about this is just kind of thinking through things as the week was going along, though. You knew it was going to be Brock Osweiler at the quarterback position. You felt like, or at least I did, like the running game is going to get better because Kubiak has a great running system. We've seen it historically year after year after year for Gary Kubiak, but Peyton Manning cannot run it because he's so beat up and his legs are not there anymore. I thought, well, with Brock Osweiler being able to run an actual stretch play and do other things, that the Denver running game may get back on track, and boom, Ronnie Hillman, 20 carries.
Yeah, 21 carries. Gio Bernard and Jeremy Hill both had good fantasy games against the Cardinals last night, which was unexpected. Hill had the 2 touchdowns. Gio was a monster.
Gio Bernard was not unexpected.
Okay, I would say with the matchup, some people were tempering, not you, obviously, because you had him as your start of the week.
Yes.
All right, so in Gio and Hill going forward, you're starting Gio?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Tight ends that had big games. Kyle Rudolph came from nowhere.
Thanks, Kyle Rudolph.
6 for 106 and a touchdown. Vance McDonald was 4 for 100 and a touchdown and made people who were like, do I take a chance on Garrett Selleck? Go, oh, man. And then Greg Olsen, 3 for 54 and a touchdown. Delaney Walker, my start of the week, 8 for 109 and no touchdowns. And Tyler Eifert was he was a touchdown guy.
Just a red zone monster.
Tyler Touchdown should be his name. Anybody stand out there? Do you need to go sign Kyle Rudolph or Vance McDonald, Mike?
Nope.
But But Mike, it's the Christmas season. Don't you think Rudolph's going to lead the way?
Oh,
that
my
is a very
gosh.
valid point. That is a very valid point. If it is a foggy night, then you need to put Rudolph
stupid
out
is the
there.
voice of public opinion?
All right.
All right, let's get into the not so goods.
Pooped in his big boy pants.
All right, the big guy here is Phillip Rivers. We couldn't talk enough about the Kansas City defense last week, and they came out and just decimated San Diego. San Diego's feeling the impact of a couple things. One, there was a bit of a rift between Rivers and Gates in this game, and then Gates didn't perform at all. But you're missing Keenan Allen. You're missing Malcolm Floyd. You have no running game in Melvin Gordon. And
your offensive line is a disaster.
And Kansas City is playing as good as any defense right now, and you mix that all together, and it didn't matter who was home or away. It was a massacre. So Rivers killed people this week.
Yeah, I think that was one that, for all the reasons you just described, that you could see. I mean, he was almost my sit of the week. We talked about him being a trap play this last week, so hopefully he wasn't in your lineup. The guy that I think hurt people, I mean, Phillip Rivers, I said last week was going to hurt people because I think they would still play him. But the guy that hurt people that maybe, weren't off of Phillip was Derek Carr. Derek Carr's just been so reliable, good matchups, bad matchups. I think we had him at around the 6th quarterback coming into the week, and he 13 for 169 and 0, but I mean 13 passes? Like what?
So now you have 2 consecutive weeks where the Lions defense has shut down Green Bay in Green Bay, gave up 16 points. Oakland, who was, I believe, in the top 7 in terms of scoring points against defenses, so they were somebody you didn't want to start a defense against, and Detroit comes out and does it again.
Yeah, well, you fire your offensive coordinator and your defense becomes way better.
And they have 2 more home games coming up. They have Philly next week. Would you start them?
The Lions
defense?
The
Lions defense against
yes.
Philly.
Yeah. Why not?
At home against Sanchez?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, running backs that really didn't perform, who stands out to you?
To me, it's Danny Woodhead, the combination with Phillip Rivers. And honestly, to me, it wasn't Danny Woodhead's fault. To me, I have no idea what the game plan was for San Diego. I know what it was. It was they really, really want Melvin Gordon to perform. He hasn't done it for 10 weeks. Do you want to win the football game or not? Put Woodhead in and go with those dump-off passes. That's what really works for your
Is it possible
offense.
the answer was no?
I was going to say, but do you really want to win these games if you're San Diego?
Yes.
I mean, you're playing for you have a legitimate chance of getting that number 1 pick if you're.
You have a legitimate chance of getting fired.
That's, yeah.
So Mike McCoy wants to win. I don't understand. There has to be this point where you say, okay, enough is enough. Melvin Gordon, you're not getting it done. Danny Woodhead has been a terrific asset to our passing game, and they gave him, or he caught 1 ball. 1.
Yeah, we expected him to maybe be the one guy that could have success on the offense because of the pass rush. How do you defeat a great downfield pass rush? Screen passes. Just asked Gio Bernard last night.
You've got another guy to me. We talked about the stud muffin of Eddie Lacy. Well, of course, that's going to come hand in hand with the pooped in your big boy pants for James Starks. Andy, I believe last week you kind of said Starks is not a guy that you want to play and roll with this week. After what we saw him do, he got all the opportunity in the world the week before and didn't perform well. And that was without Eddie Lacy being in. But there's a lot of people who had both, and they clearly were going to start Starks. So he definitely helped ruin some fantasy teams out there.
All right, wide receivers that didn't perform this week, there were several. Amari Cooper had a disastrous week.
Hopefully you listened to the Friday show. He was originally my start of the week. I shifted off when the news that Slay was going to come and cover him. And that's a big part of the Lions defense. Crabtree did all right. He definitely was the one that I think he had 6 for 60 or something like that. Definitely not phenomenal. But
what happens when Darius Slay covers Kyle Rudolph?
I like it. I think
That's
Santa comes.
Pretty funny. Yeah, nobody watches is what happens. All right, Jordan Matthews played all 71 snaps, every snap in the entire game, and came out with a beautiful line of 4 for 13.
That was a crazy one to me. I really thought Jordan Matthews would perform at least as a high-level 3, low-level wide receiver 2 with Sanchez.
We talked about him last week, and Jason's like, "Where do you play him?" And I'm like, I'd flex him. And I don't. And then I go, I don't want to play him at all. I just don't want to play Jordan Matthews. I see in my vision what everyone sees that could be, right? Like, he should be good. He's out there. Chip Kelly, blah, blah, blah. Now they've lost 1 million games. I don't know what Chip Kelly's future is. It's not looking good.
Oh, he'll be fine.
It hasn't been.
Oh, I'm saying as employment, he'll be fine.
Let me ask you this: do either of you think Dallas can win that division?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
but that's because the division leader is the Giants at 5-5.
I know.
So the Eagles could win the division as well.
Yeah. So it's just unbelievable. Andre Johnson 1 for 13. I don't think that's really a pooped in your big boy pants because he hasn't had big boy pants in a year, but he had done well with Hasselbeck.
Yeah. Jeremy Maclin had a pretty bad game. 3 for 29.
I'm going to lose my season-long bet with
Maclin. That is
Maclin.
Several poor games in a row, and at this point, I don't know how much you can trust starting Maclin.
You can't. You cannot. I have to admit that. All right, tight ends. We've got another apology for you.
Eric Ebron, you had the best matchup that they could give you, and you had a perfect laser beam from Matty Snapback directly into your hands in the end zone, and you dropped it. So I apologize for nothing because Eric Ebron is a bum, and he had a touchdown.
I'm going to say this. He had a touchdown.
The process was correct.
It's hard. It's hard because I don't think there's been a pick this season. This is week 10. There's not been a pick I've got more tweets about than Ebron for some reason. Like, people are really struggling with the tight end position, who to put out there. You had some guys on bye this week, right? Like Barnage was on bye, Heath Miller was on bye. The Giants tight end Ben Watson was on bye. So people were really struggling on a pick here, and Ebron, all the math behind it, right? Which sadly, you don't play the game on paper. The paper said Oakland would struggle. Ebron had a shot, but hey, Gooser, take our lumps. Unfortunate, very disappointing, part of a tough week. And with him, Antonio Gates had 1 catch for 6 yards.
That was really good.
Your sit of the week.
Yeah, he was. Jason Witten, 2 for 27.
Oh, no.
He was not my start of the week. Although, in the beginning of the week when I was looking at guys, Delaney Walker, Jason Witten, Eric Ebron, Witten was up there. I was going, okay, maybe they build a rapport, but I just didn't like first game of Romo back. And then Jimmy Graham, 3 for 39, did very little. Is that at me?
No, that's
just at Jimmy Graham.
At Jimmy Graham.
All right. So
you know what? One of the nice things for Eric Ebron owners, which that just stinks. That's
former. They're called former Eric Ebron owners.
Eric Ebron owners. If you can
cut guys on Monday,
it pains us when we get something wrong like that. On the bright side, this week for the tight end position.
Oh my gosh,
Eric Ebron.
I thought you were going to talk Eric Ebron up again.
No, I'm just saying. You had so many guys stink, and of all your top 12 tight ends.
So you're saying you probably didn't get beat by much.
Right. You had Vance McDonald and Cameron Brate and guys like that.
Who
were the guys who were your top scorers. So hopefully you didn't, match up against Kyle Rudolph or something.
Yeah, you probably didn't.
Yeah.
Because he's been terrible. So I do want to take a couple minutes. Let's preview the Monday night game real fast. Is there anything that you want to talk about regarding the fantasy players involved here? Is this a game where McCoy, the reports have come out that New England's going to focus on them. Their running defense is very good. They're going to focus on McCoy and make Taylor beat them, but do you still expect McCoy to have a big game?
I still think he'll be a very, very solid play. We had this last week of the Jets in prime time against Shady McCoy, and he rattled off a huge game. So I'm not concerned about McCoy. I was a little bummed I couldn't be here for the Amendola talks.
Well, yeah, that would have been nice because we had a bit of a debate.
Because I am on Team Amendola.
Right, and I am on Team he's not going to be as good as Edelman. I'll be on Team Edelman is my name.
Well, Edelman's going to get 0 points this week.
Yeah, you're going to lose that.
Well, I don't have a somebody facing off against Amendola. I just don't like him as much as you do. That's it.
Oh.
And it makes me seem like I don't like Amendola, which I do. I just know that a report came out this week. They're going to limit his snaps to keep him healthy.
Yeah,
he's not Edelman.
And
His name's Danny Amendola.
And I'm actually not concerned at all about that report. The report doesn't make sense to me because Amendola's injuries are just a one-snap type of a situation, and you can't predict when he's going to get hurt.
Well, you can overwork a guy and they get hurt. That's what happens.
But the reason I think that report was a little bit irrelevant was because they were going to limit him to what they already had limited him when Dion Lewis went out for those games, and he had great games in the same exact snap.
Yes, he had okay games.
Yeah.
He did not have Julian Edelman production, and he will not.
Well, he beat Julian Edelman.
There's got to be a bet here. There has to be a bet here because I just insist upon the fact that he's not going to be Edelman replacement, and if you, depending on what you paid for him and what you expect from him, he'll have games. He'll have great games.
This debate, this conversation is what everybody's going to be watching for tonight. Is one of those like, what are the Patriots going to do with their offense minus these two key players? Does James White get involved? Does Amendola step into the role?
Dobson's going to be more involved than he was.
Yeah,
Keyshawn
exactly.
Martin.
Yeah, so you've got all
Keyshawn
sorts
Martin
of,
is the wild card for me. I think Dobson stinks.
I just know the game plan's changed. I don't want – hey, our listeners should not go into tonight's game and say, Amendola caught 5 passes. Andy's an idiot. I think Amendola's great. I spent money on fab on him in every league I'm in. He's just not as good as Edelman, and people who think he's going to come set the world on fire, I think, are going to be very disappointed.
Well, and the problem that I have is that if Amendola comes out tonight and scores 20 fantasy points and has a wonderful game, I don't know that you can just go, okay, he's going to do this week in, week out.
Maybe.
Because
Maybe
it's the
you
Patriots.
Can. Maybe you can. But you're right. I know what you're saying. You're making the point for me where one game you have one battle plan, and it involves 29 carries by LeGarrette Blount, and the next week you've got 3 carries by LeGarrette Blount, and Brandon Bolden's catching like 5 passes in the slot for no reason.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just that trepidation.
Yeah,
So,
I like him.
I would love him to succeed. I've got Brady. I'd like Brady to succeed. So something we've been sorely lacking in. You better bring your game. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Mailbag.
Perfect.
How many of those did you hear last week?
2 of them.
Yeah. Yeah. One.
My favorite was when he forgot to do it.
Yeah.
And it was just, mailbag.
He did not completely forget.
That's
he
true.
did remember.
Yes.
I just had to play catch up.
All right. If you got a question for the show, you want to send one in to us. This is the time of season where these decisions, they get big. They get big. The playoffs are coming. You're fighting for a spot. You can go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, click the Submit a Question button. Another great way to get your questions answered, not just by us but by other listeners, is to go to jointhefoot.com and check out the wall there. You can post your question. People will answer, as will we when we hop in there. And Tej in LA wants to know. He says,
"What's up, Tej?"
I love this question.
He said, "So I sat Jeremy Hill."
And I apologize. He was my sit of the week. Those two stupid touchdowns on the goal line.
So I sat Jeremy. Well, everybody sat Jeremy Hill. Yeah. So I sat Jeremy Hill. I knew the instant he plopped his tush on the bench, he'd spite me. I could have flexed him. Now I'm down by 8 points. Who do you think can get it for me? Is it Keyshawn Martin, Robert Woods, Charles Clay, or Scott Chandler? For me, this is
standard.
This is Charles Clay before it is anybody else. And then it is probably Woods, Chandler, Martin.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Clay.
Yeah, Clay's the best choice here if he's taken, which obviously I would assume he's not. I think I like Chandler more than Woods because if you're going for 8 points, you need that touchdown. Chandler could be used, but I would do Clay above anyone else here.
We didn't talk about him earlier. What do you guys expect from Sammy Watkins tonight?
I think he can have an okay game tonight. It's interesting because we were talking about with the LeSean McCoy, where Bill Belichick is a master of this is what you do the best, so you're not going to be able to do it. So will Sammy Watkins be able to step up? Because we know the focus is going to be on the running defense. So can Watkins step up and have a decent game? And I believe the answer is yes.
All right, I got a question here from Stefano in Minnesota, and it's going to be rapid fire, okay?
Right.
This is a tough one. Is Char West okay? Is Lynch okay? Is Freeman okay? Why Forsett? Why? How am I supposed to get Buck Allen and Rawls if I am last in line on the waivers, what just happened? Where am I? Can you answer all of those?
I can answer them all.
Okay.
Lynch is not okay. Char West is not okay. Forsett might be back next year. So he is not okay.
Okay, not okay.
If you are last in line of priority, you are not getting any of these players, and you need to start a petition for Fab, because Fab is the way to go.
Yeah, that is a crazy injury world we've lived in this year, to be honest. I mean, it feels like something we haven't seen. We're the top 10 guys, you know. Char West very arguably could have been best dressed of season.
Oh,
running back. I mean, you're probably still going to start Gurley and Peterson ahead of him, but schedule-wise, how he's been performing and how this game started. I mean, he had 48 yards of receiving yards in 2 seconds. So Josh in Arkansas wants to know who to start, Brandon LaFell or Sammy Watkins tonight.
That's a very fair question. I expect both these guys to be near each other, but I'm going to go with LaFell just because I trust Tom Brady more. And with those weapons down, LaFell might get a little bit more red zone work.
I think LaFell has a safer floor of if you just need a few points here, but Watkins has the ceiling. So if you need huge points, you got to go with Watkins.
For me, I think LaFell benefits from the Edelman injury in terms of a couple extra targets. He was my start of the week, so I have to go with LaFell. So, all right, that is it for today. That is it for today's show. We got our waiver wire show tomorrow. Hope you enjoy the Monday Night Football game. Be sure to check out the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. Visit our Twitter page @theFFBallers. If you want to follow us individually, each of us here, you can follow Jason @JasonFFL. You can follow Mike @FFHitman. Happy to have you back, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome back.
It's good to be back, America.
And you can follow me @Andy Holloway if you want to see me talk about Marcus Wilson. That's pretty much all I do on it. I did bring him up Sunday morning. I said, hey, roll him out once Jeffrey was out there.
I didn't blame you.
Marcus Wilson only succeeds if Jeffrey and Royal are out together. But then he had a good game. So what else is going on here? You can check us out on YouTube. We are on the Fantasy Sports Network, which, by the way, the Fantasy Sports Network is now hitting Apple TV.
Yeah.
If you didn't know that. So if you wanted to watch us on your Apple TV, we're on the Fantasy Sports Network. And, yeah, it's going to be a good week.
And so I need some fantasy juju tonight. Tell
them what's going on so people can follow along with you.
I have an interesting situation here, and I really think that the fantasy karma is going to bounce back.
It is funny. It is really funny.
Last week, on my drive to Disneyland, I was in a tough matchup. I ended up being the second highest scoring team of the week, and I lost by 10 points because Willie Snead gave me 0 points.
Yeah, you weren't happy.
In what was one of the top over-unders of the week, which is why I went with Snead. And I had Fitzgerald was on my bench with enough points to have who I could have withstood a victory.
Yeah,
player Fitzgerald. Fast forward to this week. I am the lowest scoring team of the week, playing against the second lowest scoring team of the week.
You had Forsett, Phillip Rivers.
The Eagles defense. I mean, everything that could go wrong went wrong for my team.
And you're still going to win.
I still have a chance to win, and because I have LaFell, Amendola, and Shady McCoy tonight. So I need the fantasy juju to redeem what was stolen from me last week.
It would just balance out, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
You get a 70-point win, and you lost with 140, and then those are the toughest things in fantasy. It really is. So we'll see what happens tonight. It'll be fun to see what that New England offense can do without Edelman and Lewis. Can they stay, big Rex on Monday night?
We just need like 3 Amendola touchdowns tonight.
That's all. No big deal.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at www.thefantasyfootballers.com and follow us on Twitter @theFFBallers.
So I didn't pay the kind of